everybody, so why should we hire you? Let's talk about that question in a job interview, starting with how to answer it. If somebody asks you, why should we hire you in a job interview? A good answer is to say, well, as I understand it, you're looking for somebody who, and then you go down the list of job requirements explaining how you meet or satisfy each one. Okay, that's a great answer to that question. Now, the reason why it's great is because recruiters care about requirements, okay? Their entire job is to procure candidates who meet a list of requirements. And as I've said previously, the recruiters don't write the list of requirements, they're given the list of requirements, and they're told to provide candidates that meet these requirements, okay? So if you answer this way, and you give them how you meet all the requirements and you address each one, that's perfect. Now, I did a semi-popular video on this a while ago, and I got something like 2,000 comments on it about the question, variations on the question, and this answer, okay? Starting with, what do you do if you don't meet all the requirements? Okay, that's a pretty valid question. Now, here's the deal. You don't have to meet all the requirements, okay? But you have to speak to them, okay? So, for example, let's say that in the job posting, one of the requirements was that you have, say, 10 years experience in something, okay? Now, let's pretend for the sake of argument that you only have 7, okay? You don't actually have 10, but you got 7, okay? So, you could mention in your answer that you have 7 years experience in this exact role, okay? But you also have, say, 5 years experience in this other role over here that you did previously. But it turns out that that experience is extremely similar to experience in this direct role. So when it comes to experience, you have 10 years, really. It's not going to be a concern, okay? Now, I just made that up off the top of my head, but you could say something like that, okay? You might not meet the requirement technically, but you can speak to it. You can maybe come up with a simple argument why it's not really going to be a concern. You don't have that, but you got this, and that's the main thing. So you can do the job, okay? But that was a very valid and intelligent question that a lot of people had that they put in the comments. Okay, now, another thing that I advocate for in an interview, especially when you're answering this question, is in the job interview, presumably you're going to be sitting at a desk, right? On the table, okay, in front of you, I recommend you have a few things. And I recommend you have a few papers, okay, and one of them would be a printout of the job description, the job posting, okay, that lists the requirements. And what I recommend is that if you have this in front of you, and if you've maybe been a little proactive and you've taken a highlighter and you've highlighted maybe one word on each of the requirements, right? If you have it on the table in front of you, you can glance down on it and just make sure that you address each of the requirements, right? You're not leaving anything out. Now, people commented, a lot of people asked the question, like, isn't having, papers in front of you distracting? And if you're going to have something in front of you, aren't papers a little passé and behind the times in this wonderful 21st century smartphone tablet world that we have? Okay, here's what I would say. First of all, it's not a problem to have papers in front of you in a job interview. In the vast majority of situations, papers are fine, okay? Do they signal that you're behind the times and they're a little passé? No, they don't. Now, maybe if you're going in for some kind of tech job, if you're going to work in IT or something, okay, fair enough. You might want to have a tablet or something, but it is not an issue to have something in front of you. It's not going to be distracting. Now, keep in mind that I'm not advocating that you read right off the page like this, like reading directly off. I'm breaking eye contact. That's not what I'm saying, okay? Right now, hopefully I'm maintaining eye contact with you reasonably well, I've got some notes on my screen right here, okay, that I'm glancing at occasionally to make sure that I don't forget one of the things I was going to cover. But it's not a distraction, and it's not taking away from my eye contact and my engagement with you, hopefully. So let me know in the comments if that's not the case. But yeah, this is what I advocate for. You shouldn't be reading it right off the page. You should know them, but they're just there as a reference in case, you might be a little bit nervous. It might be kind of out of your comfort zone a little, so it's nice to have a backup. Okay, so that's what I would say to that. Now, another thing that a lot of people said in the comments, which I thought was kind of interesting, was they suggested an alternative answer. Okay, and they said if they ask, "Why should we hire you?" you say to them, "Well, why would I want to work here?" Yeah, I don't recommend you say that. A lot of people put that in the comments. A lot, like hundreds and hundreds of people said this. Yeah, don't say that. Now, I'm aware that if you search deep enough on the internet, you can find people that recommend that you actually give that answer. And the logic, as I understand it, is that, it shows your assertiveness, that, you recognize it as a two-way vetting. So the recruiter is sort of vetting you, but you're also vetting the company to see if you really want to work there. Now, speaking as someone who's been a hiring manager, I've had to hire people. If a candidate were to give that answer, okay, I would take that, I would be kind of confused by that, because first of all, they applied for the job with my company. Presumably they know that it's a place they would want to work. That's why they applied. If they have no idea, what the company is about and if they would even want to work here, it begs the question, why did they apply in the first place? So the fact that they ask a question like that signals a bunch of negative things, that they don't really know what they're doing, they don't really know the company they're applying to, or it might come across as just belligerent. When you ask a question, you expect an answer. If you get resistance or you get a counter question, generally people don't like that. So generally speaking, I would not recommend you answer with that. Okay, another alternative answer that somebody, not one person, like hundreds of people were suggesting was, if you get asked, why should we hire you? They're recommending you say, well, because I don't want to starve, right? Yeah, don't say that. Don't say that. I know that's why we all need jobs. I get that. But don't say that, okay? First of all, okay, they're not asking you why you need a job. Okay, that's not what this question is about. They're asking why they should hire you specifically instead of somebody else. Okay? That's what they're asking. So by saying, well, you should hire me because I don't want to starve, that doesn't answer the question, and it's a little bit obtuse, so I wouldn't say that. Okay? And finally, several people asked this very intelligent question. They said, look, in a job interview, if I was already asked something like, tell me about yourself, and I answered by saying, well, I'm a person who has this, and this, and they're all the requirements for the job, right? So I already kind of said how I meet the requirements. And then they turn around and ask this question, why should we hire you? Does that mean I have to give my answer all over again? Like, do I have to repeat what I just said? Great question. Okay, the short answer is yes. Now, you shouldn't repeat the exact same words. That would be kind of silly, right? But the answer to both those questions is essentially explaining how you meet the requirements, okay? And how other things will not be a concern, okay? The salary is not going to be a concern, and your expectations are not going to be a concern, and things like this, okay? So yes, if you've explained once how you meet the requirements, maybe the fact that they're asking you, why should we hire you? If they're not reading questions off a sheet, but they choose to ask you this question, that suggests that you haven't really convinced them that you meet everything. Okay. I recommend that you speak to how you meet the requirements. And you could end with, showing a bit of personality, right? But basically your question is going to be how you meet the requirements. Now, you can use different ways of backing it up. You could explain in a different way how you meet the requirements, but essentially, yes, you're going to be repeating your answer in substance using different words and maybe different examples to back it up. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more background to this question and what would be a good answer and what wouldn't. Thank you so much for sending in those super intelligent questions. You guys are awesome. You're awesome for watching this long, and you're awesome for taking an interest. Thank you very much, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.